definitely now I believe like health is the new luxury. 10 years ago, it was like what you're wearing, the clothing, the brands that you have. Like, if you have like energy, you feel good, you look good, and you're like confident in yourself, you don't have pain. That's really what matters. You can have all the money in the world, all the clothes in the world, but if you don't feel good, then you can't really enjoy life.
Jaclyn, so great to be jumping on. I think we were just speaking about how a lot of the founders we interact with are like other people that we're building around, be it New York or some of the more active cities, definitely Miami. It's been harder to collect the founder like energy that is felt in the city, but people always ask like and like get dopamine hits from hearing from like stories of like what other founders or other like go-to-market leaders are doing here. So it's awesome to be jumping on and showing more of these contents. So thanks for jumping on.
Yeah,
But
definitely. Thanks for having me.
yeah, how's the city?
It's good. There's definitely a big energy, I think, especially in the health tech space. I feel like the past few years, kind of post COVID, there's a big, huge startup scene. So
Yeah.
excited to be here. And I moved here a couple of years ago, but like I feel like it's definitely the place to be.
Yeah, the community that we've been able to build out there and like what we're doing with like Health Command and those dinners has been like such a strong outcome. I think we have like 30 or 40 founders that like have all come to dinner once a month for the past, 8 or so months. It's interesting to see how large healthcare is there.
Yeah, it's
Um,
where we met, I think, in the summer, a few months
100%.
ago. Yeah.
And like it's also such a wide breadth. Like I love like the background that you have and the work you're doing now in longevity. I'd love to hear more about it. I know like we haven't caught up in like the last month or so. So catch me up with what's been happening on the longevity front.
Yeah, I mean, so now I joined like a recent startup in longevity, so kind of early, first team member. I feel like it's kind of a pattern. The past two companies I've been kind of the first employee in, which to me is exciting. But it's definitely different than like where, I came from. I started off in engineering, so I've always been like interested in healthcare.
Yeah. You
Most of
went you
my
went
fam.
engineering and then from there you went to Jona. Was Jona right after engineering?
So no, I started off like always thought I would be in healthcare. Families in that space. It's very common and kind of in Michigan, so super interested in it. But I also was pretty, strong in math and like to create, like, come up with ideas. So decided and learned about the field of biomedical engineering, so which is kind of a nice combo of all of it. So did that in school by training at Michigan, and then wanted to work in the medical device industry. I thought that if I can design something cool, I can have a larger impact at scale, like at a bigger company. So then I moved to California. So I was in San Francisco for a bit, working for Medtronic, which is kind of a big med device company. I was in their cardiovascular unit or space. So essentially, if someone has a heart attack, I was kind of designing the devices that would go into the arteries. Very hands-on, in the lab,
Yeah.
prototyping, like mad scientist type of work. So very different what I'm doing now, but I like loved it. I kept getting tapped though to do a lot of the non-engineering things too. Like they would launch a new device, they would need an engineer to go demo it at a conference or train the sales reps, like talk to.
That's where the commercial journey came from, huh?
Yeah, that's where it started. So I kind of had these two hats. I would talk to all these physicians. I was kind of, doing voice of customer work and like leading innovation program there. So I said, I like getting closer to the strategy and closer to the customer. But I wanted to also kind of dive more into a startup because a med device takes like 5 years to get to market, to bring it all through the FDA and especially now. So I wanted to move towards more software too. I felt like that was a lot quicker to bring to life. So I made the jump. I moved from West Coast to East Coast. So that what's brought me to business school and try to get the actual like foundation of business and dive deeper into that.
Yeah.
So that's where I got into more like the health tech startup scene. Worked at a variety of different health tech and AI companies in the like during school, like BD growth phase. Worked at Viz AI, which is kind of a diagnostic tool to look at how to identify stroke in patients like through imaging, and then they're able to like do a whole care coordination with the providers. Did a little bit of that, and then also worked at 30 Madison, which is first exposure to more consumer health
Of
and
course.
like marketing towards consumers. Those are both pretty big companies, like for
Yeah.
startups, like 500 people. So I told myself, okay, I did, 100,000 person company. I've done like 500 person company. I want to see like very early stage and then pick and choose like what makes sense for me. And that's how I got into Jona. So
Yeah.
um, I saw the founder post. I didn't know the founder, but I saw him post on LinkedIn that he was doing something in like health tech, AI providers and consumers, which I was like, okay, this is kind of everything that
Yeah.
I was interested in. So I reached out to him, kind of asked to work, part time like during that. And that's kind of where it started. So kind of doing a lot more work, and it was just an idea really in the founder's head at the time. So I feel like I got a lot of hands-on experience, like just building it up
Yeah.
from scratch.
So wait, let me actually, I'm curious. So in that Jona experience, like now that you're doing some, similar like 0 to 1 commercial front, like what are some of the major differences tactically that you've like seen between, Jona, which um is gut health, correct?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Jonah was
Now,
testing the gut microbiome.
right.
It's very similar to what I'm doing now. I think what we were trying to do, I started off like doing like the budget and the P&L and like the go to market and then kind of the sales and partnerships and just kind of took on many hats.
Yeah.
It was challenging though, because you're trying to there's already a category that existed. It was definitely a huge, tailwind in the gut health and gut microbiome.
Yep.
Historically, there are some like gut health tests in the space, but I think they were underserving the market and like, bigger companies that needed more innovation and making it more translatable to individuals and patients. But I think from a go-to-market standpoint, we were kind of doing it B2B and B2C at the same time. So we had to kind of work with and sell to providers and build out that engine and figure out what are the channels to go to, how do we reach different doctors and clinics,
Yeah.
how do we get more entrenched in it's different than interventional cardiologists. Like the people doing microbiome tests are functional medicine, longevity, GI docs, health coaches. It's a different segment than what I've been used to. So kind of figuring out and learning that. And
Yeah.
then also figuring out how to go to market for consumers. So kind of doing both at once. Usually companies start in one lane and build it out and then go to the next. I think it's challenging to do both and to do both well in like a
Yeah.
lean startup team. And I think it's kind of similar to what I'm doing now at this new company. So I feel like I have my rodeo doing it twice, kind of experience doing it
Yeah.
once, but it's
Are
helped me
you
a lot.
finding the things that were successful at Jonah are helping like are like also showing the same results within longevity, or like have there been pivots within like go to market where it's like different?
Well, I think what I've learned at the last company is, especially with trying to go to market with clinicians, is like certain events actually help a lot. I think it's helpful because I've met a lot of people in the space in the past, 3 years. So I think it maybe short circuits things a lot quicker now at this new company,
Yeah.
in terms of like how they think, how they operate, how their clinics operate, what they care about. I think that's helped a lot. I think also just like knowing the landscape, like who are the other companies in the space, the other diagnostic companies, the supplements, the medications,
Right.
like how the ecosystem works. And then I've probably been to, I don't know, 10, 15 events, conferences in this space. So I think it also helps like knowing which ones to go to and which ones I can avoid and like what they're each
Yeah. Yeah.
positioned for. Um, so that helps a lot. I think, the what we're building is very different than what we built at Jonah. And we're still in kind of stealth mode, but
Yeah.
I think the learnings from the last company helped with this a lot. And so knowing the space also just makes it a lot quicker.
Absolutely. And so like how much when you think about like go to market and there's obviously like there's the reaction of knowing a lot of people in the space and having a lot of these relationships that can open those doors. Like how do you think about that like inbound versus outbound and where else are you investing like, your time?
Yeah, I think it depends on like short-term or long-term goals. I think one of the things we didn't do super well, or I wasn't actually super, comfortable with because I haven't done it before, honestly, was we didn't do like a structured outbound that much initially. And now, especially with all these AI tools and all these, drip campaign tools, it's easier more than ever to do that. So I think having a healthy balance of outbound versus kind of like the warm intro. But I do think, warm intro like LinkedIn, honestly, is a lot quicker and a lot faster, especially if you have like
100%.
a connection, whether it's a mutual connection, you went to the same school, you're in the same space. I think that helps a lot.
Yeah.
So I find LinkedIn actually to be my most useful like tool from a outreach standpoint,
Yeah.
both cold outreach and also like warm outreach, depending if I know them.
Yeah. I think like LinkedIn is such a powerful tool because it also you can do the inbound and outbound. I think like um for us content has been like a huge driver of like people getting to know us. And then of course when it
Mm,
gets to us, right, to bring on people, they'll give us a call and naturally we want to figure out if we could be supportive or if it wouldn't be the fit for a specific role. But between what you can do in terms of building your brand awareness, which obviously has like a one-to-many reaction because that content will continue to spread over time, and then what you can do with outbounding directly, and to your point, like if you're already in the know, like in the network, and like if people know you and you have like those mutual connections, I do think like that has been a big accelerant of ours as well. Different from some of our other, but it's challenging though because those things take time. Content helps accelerate that, of course.
Hmm.
The relationships are like, the good news is like they're great relationships and they're real people and like we have a great time working with like friends, but it's otherwise challenging.
Yeah, I mean, it's not super scalable, but it's kind of there's pros and cons. I think,
100%.
outbound emails are, more scalable, but the open rates sometimes aren't great. Also, if you're targeting providers or clinicians, like they're not opening their emails. They're like so
Yeah.
busy working. They're not really on LinkedIn either. So it depends on like the persona. But yeah, there's pros and cons. They don't know who you are. At least at LinkedIn, they can kind of stalk your profile and see who you
Yeah.
are for a second before they
Absolutely.
agree to respond or like, accept your request or whatever that is. So but you can't, make LinkedIn super scalable from that standpoint. And it also depends on who you're trying to work with or who you're trying to reach, whether it's like a
Yeah.
partnership or from a sales engine or whatever that may be.
Yeah. So I know you're in stealth, but what can you tell us a little bit about like what you're working on?
Yeah, I mean, I think in
Or like
general,
maybe
what
tell
I,
us what you're trying to solve. Could be like
yeah,
like how you go.
I think, one of the things that I noticed, because I would go to a lot of these longevity clinics and I would see, I mean, they were like state of the art facilities. They only have like a pretty small patient panel that they focus on because they're spending a lot more attention with these patients. Because of that, I feel like a lot of the space was almost wasted. Like a lot of these clinics were built, there wasn't much traffic. They had all these machines, all this equipment, and I feel like it would cost a lot of money to operate. And
Yeah.
then and so because of that, they have to charge a lot for these longevity clinics, which are, I'm in New York, so there's some in Miami where you're based, maybe in some LA and SF, but it's not fully accessible in terms of different locations. And also it's the price point, 30, 40, 50, even K, even some of them over 100K. It's just not accessible to the average person. But people are pretty fed up, like going to primary care. You have a 10-minute visit with your primary care once a year. Like
Yeah.
I bounce around so much, like I barely even have a primary care doc because I moved around to different cities, but it's just very underwhelming, I think, in terms of what the current status quo is for people. So you find
Absolutely.
that, yeah, so individuals will buy like a bunch of one-off tests, supplements, get like a social media influence from like a doctor they saw online, or they'll get a functional medicine doc. It's very ad hoc, fragmented, and overwhelming. So we're trying to bring this level of care and make it more accessible. So that's kind of a little bit of what we're trying to build out.
Nice. Interesting. And so is this going to be something where like similar to superpower function, it's going direct to the homes, or is this more like you have to go come like into some of these labs? Like what right now, like my co-founder and I are looking all the way through like what is the best way to like stack our health. And some of the things we're thinking about is like these like longer longevity clinics that we can work with like on an annual basis, and they're
Mhm.
taking care of us, they're taking DEXA scans, they're helping us test for whatever we're looking for and optimize like our daily health. Is this like I do think that you're 100% right though. Like having these physical locations can be a ginormous blocker to your finances. Are you trying to tackle that, or is that something is that like how does that play in?
I think you're going too into the details of what we're doing, but I think,
We'll wait and see. We'll wait and see.
yeah, yeah, it'll be soon. It'll be soon. But
Interesting. Yeah.
I think we're trying to tackle accessibility in many different ways, financially, physically, and then also just bring everything in one place. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm excited. I do think there's like a huge wave, and it's kind of paralleling with like people that like are the ride of peptides across the board.
Hmm.
Obviously, GLP-1s is just like insane the penetration they've had. Just
Hmm.
like it's quite impressive. And now there's like these other peptides, of course, that people are taking for many different things. Some of which like it was interesting. I started seeing a lot of late 20 and 30-year-olds taking some of the peptides that are more oriented around muscle growth. And then I
Hmm.
started realizing like elders were also approaching a similar, like they were suggesting a similar solution with peptides. And so I think though that drives really closely with people thinking about their proactive health. And I think longevity has just from everything that I've been speaking to far smarter people than me in healthcare that we've been meeting with, like there's I'm excited to see what comes out of it. I'm excited to see what you guys build.
Yeah. I mean, I think ultimately now I believe like health is the new luxury. 10
Yeah.
years ago, it was like what you're wearing, the clothing, the brands that you have. I think that's a little bit, I mean, they'll always exist, but I think that's a little bit antiquated. I think if you have like energy, you feel good, you look good, and you're like confident in yourself, you don't have pain or, you know, you're confident in like your mental abilities, you don't have cognitive decline. Like that's really what matters. You can have all the money in the world, all the clothes in the world, but if you don't feel good, then you can't really enjoy life. And so you see a lot of just the movement of shifting of like wellness tourism, people traveling to like, wellness resorts
I just met a
and
founder who's building an incredible business that's supporting a lot of those international travel
yeah, I
destinations.
mean even they're building it out in the States too. Like a lot, I think that's a huge industry that's kind of booming and people like like that's almost like a luxury. They're going to a hotel not to like lay out, but to like have a whole wellness experience, whether
Yeah.
it's testing or meditation or whatever that may be. Aesthetics, I think people value that a lot more. I think post COVID actually accelerated that quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. The space is I mean, all of healthcare really. I'm curious, like from your perspective, I love to see like you advise the vet Hera.
Yeah. Mhm.
That's so cool. Like, what else are you finding interesting in healthcare now? Like, from all the conversations you've been having with other founders and people within healthcare.
I mean, Hera, I think is cool. I think met the founder, a couple of years ago. But what was interesting to me is, a lot of fertility and the conversation around fertility is always focused on the woman. Like, everyone's talking about egg freezing or their age, and it's always like a woman's problem. But over 50% of the reason why people have fertility issues is actually because of the man's sperm.
Yeah,
Um, in terms of miscarriages and things that happen and how the woman takes the pregnancy, a lot of that is actually from like the male biological factors, but there's not too much education around it, and there's not like too many companies around it. There's a few companies testing, like sperm health and semen, but there's not like a lot of big wave on it. And so I like their approach and how do you educate individuals, make that more accessible, but they're actually using an AI approach, which to me, I liked that part better. And looking at all the scientific studies, how do you analyze all the different factors that go into it and figure out the likeliness to conceive or what that looks like from a reporting standpoint. So taking, the classic test kit business and then adding a layer of software and intelligence where you do have applications both direct to consumer, but also B2B. I think companies that can kind of migrate the two and like connect the two and build out networks to me are the more interesting plays.
yeah.
I've also like seen, test kits and like at Jona, we were doing test kits, but it was kind of similar where it had like a whole AI analysis component to it too. So
Yeah.
I've um I've seen like kind of the economics of all those sides and like building it out and what it takes and like the operations and logistics, just being on the ground floor for all these. So um yeah, I think software applications definitely are a wave of the future, and doing it at scale.
What can you say? It's actually a very interesting point. Like, what can you say from like your exposure to the finances of like the short term cost of implementing a lot of these AI flows, like differentiating from like traditional software to the like how much does it then decrease the amount of operational work over the long term that you have to do, right? Like, is it a huge hack in terms of outcome or?
In terms of like a product that has AI or in terms of like building out infrastructure that has AI
I
in the
think
business?
infrastructure that has AI that decreases like the need for more tracking, right? Like that's obviously the trend is like not necessarily tracking, but like more updating of information or some manual type of analysis.
Yeah, I mean, I think I even this with this new role, I think there's been more AI tools coming out every month that it's interesting to see what that looks like. Like I feel like most people don't even write their emails anymore. They like have some AI chat bot, they're pumping into chat GPT. I think you can even tell when I can just tell when
I
people
think you can
respond to
tell.
me.
I think we're still in the era of you can tell.
Yeah, well with the hyphens, you can tell.
Yeah.
Um, People are posting content right now with AI as well. So I think content generation is a lot quicker. I think finding out more information about somebody, it's very easy to find an email from somebody, detailed information about the company. You can do that so much quicker now than you could do even a couple of years ago. Like you can go on LinkedIn and then there's tools where you can see their email right away just by going on someone's LinkedIn profile, like whether it's certain Chrome extensions. I just think the ability to get information is so much quicker, but that makes it more competitive because now everybody has these
Yeah,
tools.
it's definitely changing the speed at which strategies have to like adapt. I would say like I've been doing outbound and business development like from my really from my first company in college, but like what became my first tech company, which was like in the real estate technology space. Like what was real then is so different from what is now, and it's been
Mhm.
like less than 5 years to your point.
Yeah. I think that's going to become mainstream where, go to market, early operations, early product leaders are going to be using early salespeople are going to have to be familiar with all these tools. But I
Yeah,
think that's going to get commoditized, honestly. It's like people using Google, you know, 15, 20
yeah,
years ago, or people that are doing email. Like it's kind of table stakes. I think what's underrated and will be underrated in the next few years and more valuable is like the actual individual, the relationships with people, how they show up in person. I think that has more power than
yeah.
crafting all these drip campaigns and emails and outbound, which is definitely needed. And you have to have both, but eventually a lot of people will be able to do that.
I agree. It was awesome catching up.
Yeah,
So we're gonna come up and do another dinner in the next like month or so. So I'll ping you in the group chat, but I'll hit you up anyways. It's so great to catch up.
awesome. Yeah, let me know next time you're in New York.
I 100%
Thanks.
will.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Isaac.
thanks, Rafi. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.